Happy New Year, bro.
Yes. Happy New Year. It feels like, yes, we did take some time to celebrate this time, didn't we? So it feels
We
like such a long
did.
time.
Absolutely, we did. Viewers, Happy New Year to you. Welcome to your favorite Sunday morning show, the SonRise. It's like, it feels like we've been away for so long.
But
and
we
it's only
haven't
like
really
a
have.
week.
Yeah,
It's only like a week.
Well, it's a
Oh,
couple of
wow.
weeks, right, from Christmas Day.
Yes, well, anyways, I have missed being on this show. I've missed it, and I'm so glad to be back again this morning. Prof, how are you? How about you as well? I'm sure you've missed the show. Don't say you haven't.
I have, of course, I have. I know that some viewers we're having withdrawal symptoms, but we're back, so you don't have to suffer anymore. We're back. Yeah, it was good to just take the time to recharge. Like we said when we did our 1 year anniversary, we didn't actually take any breaks at all from 2020 November when we started.
Right, yeah.
So this is the first time we've actually taken some time to recharge, to refresh, spend time with the family, and then come back all ready to go. Yeah. So yeah, it was great.
It's like I don't even need to ask you how your Christmas and New Year went. Like, what did you do? What were you up to? I think at that time you were having family around or something. So how did you spend Christmas and New Year?
Yeah. Had family around. So yes, of course, when that happens, it's quite busy, right? Because you have lots of little children running everywhere, and the parents chasing after them, but still having fun and creating some good memories. But yes, that's what we did. We had some guests around. I kind of get the sense that you did something slightly different in a slightly different environment. So tell us.
Do you know what I did? And it's like, if I tell you today is what date? My Christmas turkey is still in my freezer. I'm telling you, I am telling you, and I'll tell you why. Because I know Tabeka Pantry. This is just saying to you, the Christmas turkey I ordered still in my freezer. I haven't heard it yet because
on 9th of January, you still have. Do you
understand? Like, because so what happened was there was no plan of us going away for Christmas at all. So we had planned on spending Christmas at home, and 2 days or 3 days to Christmas Day, we just decided, all right, yeah, let's go somewhere, and that's how we went. And of course, it was really nice. I mean, we went with a few friends as well and their families. So it was just nice to spend the Christmas Day. Christmas Day was not very hot, but it was about 18 degrees on the day. It was sunny. So, of course, I didn't miss the weather here.
Yeah, go on, rubbish. Yes, it was nowhere near 18 degrees here.
Yes. So it was really good. It was good. And then, unfortunately, I came back with COVID. Well, they said I had COVID. I didn't have COVID. But
you brought a gift back with you, is it?
But it's so, like, Prof, actually, do you know what? We're laughing about this now. And I'm so grateful to God that we are actually laughing about it. And I feel like this is something that we should talk about this morning, actually, especially with the new variant of COVID that we're hearing about now. I'm sure you and we know people in the last few weeks that have caught COVID, In fact, so weird that people that do not show any form of symptoms at all are testing positive. I did a lot of traveling in 2021, never caught the virus. And then, having to leave where we went to, coming back, we had to get a PCR done to come back to the UK. I did that, it was negative, and that was the only way I could come into the UK, right? So got back home, I was feeling a bit kind of rough, I had cold, nothing out of ordinary, but just cold I had, and I thought I was dealing with cold. But again, because we had traveled and I just come back, I just said, you know what, let's just go and get a test done. Let's get a PCR done again, because we just never know. Then when did get the test done, bam, positive. And I was like, where? I mean, every other person in my household were negative, but I was the only positive person. I was like, how did I get this? Anyway, so I had to self-isolate, of course, and then as I was isolating, the rules are, oh God, Prof, I read so much. There's so many different things. I feel so sorry for people who have had to deal with this thing for a long period of time, because it's just, you just don't appreciate how long you've gone without contracting this virus. And then all of a sudden it just hits you like that. But thankfully it wasn't bad at all. As I said, it was just cold. I just was having cold symptoms. 2 days after I took my day 4, after I took my first PCR, I went to take another PCR, and that came back negative. And so I was in a confused state. And at this time, I was still meant to be in self-isolation, right? So I wasn't even meant to come out. So I didn't come out, and I got a message from NHS to say, oh, yes, your recent COVID test has come back negative. However, because you tested positive just in your previous test, you need to remain in self-isolation. And it's just so confusing. One day I pick up the lateral flow kits, try to test with that, shows negative. Another day comes up positive, and you're like, for goodness sake, I haven't even been anywhere other than like I've traveled, I've come back, I've done a series of tests. But you know, the point I want us to focus on now, and I feel maybe you can help us to understand, because I'm sure it's probably not just only me feeling this way, is that why is it that we have people who are not showing any some sort of symptoms? I know they've been called asymptomatic or something like that. You know, they're completely okay. They are well, nothing is wrong with them. They test, they're positive. However, these people, if I'm sure a lot of people test because maybe they're traveling or someone around them has been exposed or whatnot. But if we're just at home doing nothing, or maybe just around, if I didn't travel at all, I wouldn't have the need to test for COVID. If I was at home and I was feeling like I had cold or whatnot, I'd just be treating it as, okay, you know, I need to rest and whatnot. That would be it. I wouldn't test for COVID. So now, how do you see the way this Omicron variant is going, and how we as a people are to deal with it? Because I feel like it's really scary to go out there, because if you just walk past someone that has it and the person just open their mouth, just maybe whether to cough or to even say a word, you can just catch the virus like that. Yeah.
Well, I guess in the first place, I would say, thank God that you're fine and you're well. You know, it's interesting. And you said this at the beginning of you know, your explanation, that, you know, thank God we can laugh about it. Because if we had kind of rewound this back and we're having this conversation in 2020 or at the beginning of 2021, it might not be quite as you know, lighthearted as it is. So I think there's something there to say about what's happened since that time and why we are where we are. I think that, you know, there are a number of things you've raised. I know that in a few minutes, or well, in a few seconds, we need to go on a break, but let me just set the stage for when we come back from the break. A few things that you've mentioned here. One, around transmissibility of the new variant. What around, you know, symptomatic and asymptomatic patients, if you like. Two, around perhaps the reliability of the tests on what they tell you and how, you know, to manage that experience. Three, kind of the mindset, if you like, around Omicron and whether people are afraid or not, and other things. So I think when we come back, we can take this perhaps one after the other and see what we can make of it. I do think that, you know, for most things there is an answer, and let's see what we can get.
I want to hear the answer. So yes, viewers, don't go anywhere. Please stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
The Egyptians relentless on our trail. The Red Sea impassable in our fall. Between a rock and a hard place, insurmountable, unnavigable, untraversable the terrain might be. Yet, the voice of He who set the world in motion I hear. In the midst of darkness, He speaks light. Trapped in a repetitive cycle the days have seemed. But now, I hear Him say, turn you northwards. I hear Him say, go forward, for I will make a way where there seems to be no way. Against all odds, 2022 is our year to advance. The prophetic word from heaven over our lives in this new year is advance. The Red Sea will part, the Jordan will back up, the rocks, the mountains will give way. All He requires of you is to advance in faith. In the face of daunting odds, advance. It is your time to advance. Go forward.
Welcome back, everyone. Glad you've joined us. If you're just joining us, of course, it is your favorite Sunday morning show, SonRise, the very first episode for 2022. I was just about to say 2021. Yeah, 2022. Yeah. So, and we are so excited to be back here with you. Thank you for joining us. Please do let your friends and family know that we are live, and we're talking about COVID. So I said just before the break that I have had my fair share of COVID, if you like. They said I had COVID, but anyway, so we're just talking about the testing and all the confusion around. You test one day, it's positive. You test another day, it's negative, and then also about the fact that this Omicron variant is highly transmissible, and how are we meant to deal with this? Are people even walking around being fearful of the variant? And Prof was just about to go into the explanation, as the scientist. So he has the answer. So Prof, over to you.
Thanks, Bibby. So yes, to recap a little bit, I was saying that there are three things I would like to consider in turn, given sufficient time. One being the transmissibility of this variant and this idea of both symptomatic and asymptomatic carriers or patients, if you like. And then second being the testing and how that sort of works and what, how to respond to seemingly conflicting results and what that means as far as risk is concerned as well. And then third being the overall, if you like, mindset around Omicron. Another variant has come. And, you use the word scared and fear, and I'll say why I think actually it should be the very opposite. Okay. So first to the transmissibility of Omicron. This is not the first time we've heard this, right? If you remember when Delta came on the scene, and the conversation around Delta was, it's I think at the time about 30% more transmissible. We were saying we didn't know whether it was more severe or not. The severity of it was comparable to what was then Alpha, and then that was really what drove, if you like, the kind of most of COVID really in 2021 was driven by or at least until December, until late November, was driven by Delta. And you know how transmissibility works, right? Transmissibility basically is the likelihood, right, that a person carrying COVID is going to transfer that to another person.
Yeah.
Right. I use the term likelihood, but usually this is in percentage terms. So you would say if one person is carrying COVID, how many people is that person likely to infect from there, or something along those lines. So it really gives you an idea of how quickly the infection will get around. And bear in mind, this is not just a COVID thing, it's just a way of talking about infections or whatever it is, right? How quickly does it get around? So that's one element of it. So of course, the more highly transmissible it is, the more quickly it will get around. But the other element of it is severity. Okay, and actually I will leave that until the last conversation, because I think that's a key element of it, or a last point of the conversation. But what you also find with transmissibility or a disease, any disease whatsoever being transmitted, is that whatever the disease may be, believe it or not, there will be people who will have it and will not show it.
Wow.
Yeah. Even if you think of something like HIV, there were actually, even at the height of the pandemic of AIDS, HIV, there were people who would actually contract the virus and they would just be asymptomatic and carry the thing for years and they would not show any symptoms. But yeah, they were, and they didn't necessarily get any treatment, right? Of course, this is a very small minority, but I'm just making the point that it's not unique, right, to COVID. For most, especially viral conditions, there will always be a proportion of people who will carry it and there will be no symptoms, which is why risk, especially when it comes to public health, risk management is a key part of it, right? Let's assume that this person has it and then act accordingly. Yeah. So that's not anything new, and that's something that is always going to have to be managed. And then add to that the fact that we've had a significant proportion of the population being vaccinated, right? That by itself means that there will be people who, again, will not show any symptoms just because their bodies are dealing with it quite quickly. Yeah. And so I think that transmissibility is a term we're always going to hear about, but that only becomes a concern if there is an impact of that on the public health system, like hospitals and so forth. That's really why we're talking about this, right? Because when people catch it and then they go and see the GPs or go to hospitals, they block up the system from actually doing other things because it's the same people, right? And if they have to isolate, the same thing happens. So this makes a difference, right? So the second point is around the test results themselves. Okay.
This was very interesting.
They can be tricky, and I wish there was a simple answer to that, but there isn't. As somebody who's actually been worked, hands-on, not just to develop tests like this, not this particular test, okay, but tests like this, develop those tests and also run them. Getting test results, especially when it comes to biological material, is a broadly exact science. I don't know that you notice the contradiction in what I just said. Broadly exact, right? But a lot of people assume that when you talk of biology or biological materials and measuring them, you would have the same precision as you would have with, say, physics or with mathematics. Unfortunately, it's not like that. So what you tend to do is that you will develop a test that is robust enough for you to be able to trust the result when you see it. And then in developing the test or in running the test, you set it up such that you do it a number of times, and then you get the result that gives you more confidence. Am I saying that every test that you're going to get will be 100% accurate and be done right? Well, I wouldn't be able to say that, right? Unless I'm running the test myself. Even if I'm running the test myself, it is conceivable that I could make a mistake.
Prof, we have to stop there for a few minutes, few seconds, and then so we can just quickly go on a break. Viewers, don't go anywhere. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll have to hear where Prof is going to end this, because I really want to know how we need to deal with this going forward. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
All right.
The Egyptians relentless on our trail. The Red Sea impassable in our fall. Between a rock and a hard place. Insurmountable, unnavigable, untraversable the terrain might be. Yet, the voice of He who set the world in motion I hear. In the midst of darkness He speaks light. Trapped in a repetitive cycle the days have seemed. But now I hear Him say, turn you northwards. I hear Him say, go forward, for I will make a way where there seems to be no way. Against all odds, 2022 is our year to advance. The prophetic word from heaven over our lives in this new year is advance. The Red Sea will part, the Jordan will back up, the rocks, the mountains will give way. All He requires of you is to advance in faith. In the face of daunting odds, advance. It is your time to advance. Go forward.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. And Prof, so you were just talking about the test results, and just before we went on break, that test results might not get 100% from it. So yes, please, can you please take it from there?
Yeah, so I think I probably need to rephrase that somewhat. So I don't mean that test results are not accurate. If they are not accurate and reliable, they would not be passed. They have to pass through some checks, right? What I'm saying is that there will be some variations that you will have, right? So sometimes you might have, of course, there's always human error, but you cannot manage risk by assuming human error. You have to, because the tests have been, done. And think of it this way: the risks of a false positive, at least as far as the public health system is concerned, are much less than a false negative. Yeah, because false positive means you get a positive result.
Worst case, you're self-isolating anyway.
Exactly.
But false negative will be a little more difficult to deal with.
Yeah. So from a public health system and taking care of the healthcare system, you need to be from public health perspective rather, and to take care of the healthcare system, you need to really make sure that you are putting everything in place. Number one, to have a robust set of tests that you can trust, and number two, to be able to act on those tests. And that's what you've seen, right? It's known that the PCR test is the gold standard, and the lateral flow test may not always give you the same results, may not always be as accurate, which is why even if you did get a positive test for the lateral flow test, you would want to confirm it with the PCR, right? And what you would notice as well is that given that you were away over a period of time, and there's an incubation period, and the entire kind of infection period or active infection period is thought to be around 7 days, right? So imagine that the incubation period is about 2 to 5 days, something like that. If you do a test within the first 2 days, you may not see anything, because you just don't have enough of the virus to measure to see anything. So imagine then that you do a test. You do a test within the first 2 days. It gives you a negative result, right? Like you did before you came back.
Yeah.
right? And then you come in, and then maybe somewhere between day 2 and day 6, you do another test. And this time it gives you a positive result because yes, you have enough copies to actually see something going on. But that by that time, remember, you've already been there for 5 or 6 days, and then you wait another 4 days and do another test. Well, in total, you've now actually gone past the incubation period. You've been, you've gone past 5, 8 or 9 days. So you do another test. It says you're negative. So it may look confusing, but if you could see the full picture and look at the story, you actually say, yeah, this kind of makes sense. Because if I actually took the first test on day 0 or day 1, I wouldn't see anything, right?
Yeah.
I take another test on day 6, I see something. I take another test on day 10, I don't see something.
Because by day 10, it's on its way out anyway.
It's already gone, right? That's what the system is saying, right? So if you imagine it as a curve, right? It's like a curve, like a peak, like a little mountain.
Yeah.
If you take the first test at the base of the mountain on the left, you will not see anything because the virus copies are just not enough. Then if you take the second one near the bottom on the right, that's where you see the test, but you've gone past the peak. And then you take the third one. So I'm just saying that, obviously I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but that's a plausible explanation for what you might have seen, which would mean the first time you took the test when you were already on your way to recovery, and then not long afterwards, about 4 days after that, you take another one and you think that doesn't seem to be a long separation between the two of them. But if you look at the full story, you see actually it makes sense, right? And this is why there is that advice to isolate regardless, right? Because you want to take precautions. We believe the tests are reliable, they're accurate. That's why they have passed. And so what we can do then is act based on that assumption, right? The same way, if you're going to drive, we both drive. You don't go driving on the road assuming that, when every car that comes to a roundabout, I mean, in some countries you do this, but in the United Kingdom, you wouldn't assume that when you come to a roundabout that the cars will just come and hit you, right? There is some sort of assumption you make as to the competence of the other person driving.
That's right,
so some other people who drive in other countries that perhaps maybe don't have as tough driving laws as we do here, they are wondering, how can you drive on such narrow roads and you're driving so confidently? Because you make some assumptions as to the capability and competence of the other people. And to a great extent, over 90% of the time, we're right. If we were wrong, every time you go out to drive, you'll be involved in an accident. So I think that's the thing. And the final thing, I'm just looking at, just making sure I can get the final things I wanted to say out before we end this conversation. The thing about fear, I said this at the beginning because I know that some people will be looking and saying, oh, we're getting much higher numbers now in terms of infections that we ever had at any time. Oh, we are saying that at some point a couple of weeks ago or last week, it was said 1 in 25 people would have caught COVID. Now we're saying that may even be 1 in 20 people or more people. And like you said, both you and I, not counting yourself, but both you and I have no people personally who have also caught COVID. I think there's a big difference between this time and where we were at the beginning of last year, right? At the beginning of last year, end of 2020, beginning of 2021, we didn't have the vaccines, right? There were still, a lot of the cases, especially the elderly who caught COVID, ended up in hospital. A lot of cases were severe. Of course, yes, many were not, right? But now, even though we're talking of such high numbers, you find that a lot of the people that are talking of having caught COVID have been vaccinated. They are not responding as severely, and as you mentioned, a lot of them are even asymptomatic completely. They don't even know.
That's right,
they tested. So I think that this could be a cause for optimism, right? Because if we can get to a point where COVID becomes just, as you said, just like another cold, then nobody is going to be, locking down the country and things like that because of a cold. Yes, you do the same thing you would do. I have a cold, I'm not going to shake your hand. I have a cold, I'm not going to come to the office. I'm going to maintain my distance. I don't want to give you a cold. But it's not something you think anybody's going to die from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that we really want to go into this year with that sense of optimism that, on the other hand, that, the way we say it, while there is a casting down, while men are cast down, we can say
there's a lifting up. Yes.
There will be, I imagine, a lot of people who are looking at this and using it to say, oh, wow, everything is falling apart. I'm not sure that's the case, right? And nicely trying to link this maybe to the word for the year, for the church, right? And you know what that is, the year to advance.
It's the year to advance. Yes. I'm glad you're linking it to that, to be honest, because it's always a good place to start for the year. There's always going to be one thing or the other that wanted to think otherwise. But when we just stay focused on what the promise for the year is for us. So in this house, our word for the year is the year for advancement, the year to advance. So for me, I'm saying I'm advancing in every area. So on the 1st of January, I was in the house self-isolating, and I said to myself, no, I'm not starting 1st of January with COVID because it's nothing. This year I am advancing. This COVID, it's part of advancement. You understand? Like, that's how I chose to see
Bibby? I think you said something actually quite deep there. You said it's part of advancement. Do you know the funny thing? If there was no resistance, you would never talk of advancement. Advancement to what? Right? And this is the key for me. We as a people, as believers, as people of faith, we don't look at obstacles and say, oh, that's the end of the world. Think of what happened to those guys that went to scout the land of Canaan, right? 10 of them said, oh, that's the end of the world. 2 of them said, wow, what an amazing promise, what an amazing opportunity. I think that we can look at what could otherwise be described as obstacles and say, these are levers for advancement. And that's why I think what you said about that is really a deep one, saying, this COVID, this experience is part of advancement. And I think that as a nation, as a people, let's keep focused on what's important. I really believe that, if this, far from being a harbinger of doom, far from being a sign of necessarily a casting down, I think that this could actually be our lever for a lifting up. And if we are going to advance, then we have to come with that mindset. We're not going to 2022 thinking, oh, this is going to be a terrible year. No way.
Nope. Not at all. Yes.
No. This is going to be the best year ever. A year of advancement in every sense. Whether it's in health, whether it's in career, whatever the case may be, whatever it was, the way you think of it, if that advancement means, if that thing used to hold me back previously, this time it comes around, I put my hand on its head, I step on the head, and I go to the next level.
And I move on.
That's advancement, right? Absolutely. And we know Pastor Temi has got something ready for us. And you know what?
I can't wait.
Talking about this, let's go into the service and see what's got to say. I hope that you are charged up as I am, and people that are listening, because just talking about this,
I am charged up. Like, I just love the word advancement. Like we're advancing in every area. So I just want to hear how Pastor Tim is going to unpack it, because I know that's what he's going to do for the rest of this month. So it's like, really, bring it on, Pastor Temi. I can't wait to hear.
You've released another one. Yes, bring it on. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in service. Take care. Bye.
Bye.